Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Business as a Magical Practice. Today, we have a special guest, Brooke Adams Law, on the podcast to talk about how, when, and why to write a book in your business. So, Brooke Adams Law is a writer, writing teacher, and retreat leader. She uses writing as a tool to help women step into sovereignty, claim their voices, and remake their story. So, hi, Brooke.
Hi, Sam. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, so happy to have you on here. And it's just such a good topic that you reached out to talk about. And I mean, I want to write a book. I know a lot of people want to write a book. And you actually said to stat that like a shocking percentage of people want to write a book.
Yeah, 81%, according to one survey, 81% of Americans want to write a book. And I'm like, what's stopping y'all?
I mean, it sounds really hard. Like write a book. Ugh, I can't even like read a full book. No, I'm kidding. But so what for so this podcast is specifically for magical business owners or people who have a magical spiritual practice in their life and they're expressing it in the world through their business. So what can writing a book actually do for their business?
Yeah, I love this question so much. So I think there's a lot of things. And I know you're saying that you can't even read a full book. And also, there are a lot of people who still read full books or who are like, looking through books to like gather ideas or like also figure out like who they want to work with, right? So I do think that there is still a huge audience of book readers, even though some people will try to tell you, oh, no one reads books anymore. That's actually not true.
Oh no, I
So
don't
I
actually
think
believe that. Sorry, I was just trying to
okay. No,
be
no, I'm
funny.
just saying like no, I'm just
Trying.
saying that like for people who feel like you, then some people automatically think like, "Oh, if I'm not reading a full book like not like nobody else is," right? So just want to dispel all that myth. Like there's still people reading books and then like also wanting to work with the people who wrote them, right? So,
Mhm.
in terms of your business, I think there are a few things a book can do for you. I think the first thing is a book can add credibility and visibility, right? So, there's a certain cachet to be able to add author to whatever other, like, epithets or like words you use for yourself, right? It can give you a platform from which to get more publicity. So if you are pitching a magazine or a TV news show or like any of these other publicity platforms to pitch about your business, right? Saying that you're the author of a recent book kind of like can put you over the top of like, oh, there's like that extra piece, right? To like be able to talk about. I think there's also this piece, which I was saying before, about a book really being like a perfect entry point for a lot of people to encounter your ideas and your work, right? So it can be this ambassador for your brand and your business. I've discovered a lot of coaches through their books and like I love podcasts and also if I hear somebody that I really like and they have a book like I go buy the book, right? And that becomes then I'm like now I want to get on their email list. Now like right that can all often be like my entry point is like that book is like the next level of like encountering what they're all about. And I think that there's another thing that I want to tease out about like there's different reasons to write a book and I just want to like tease out a little bit of it. So there's a piece of like there are some people I talk to who have a book inside them and like they want to write it. And I think you should write that book regardless of whether it makes sense in your business to like do it or not. So if it's coming from this place of desire, like you've always wanted to write a book, like write that book, my friend. Like go to it. And I think there's this other piece in which like when does it make sense to do it like as a strategy for your business? And I think that, I mean, if it's like specifically like part of your marketing strategy, part of your business strategy, you need to be in a place where the foundation of your business is like set, right? So you have like a financial foundation, you have like a steady stream of clients already, and you want to go to like that next level. So, like, you're up leveling your brand, you want to take it to a broader base of people. Like, that is the perfect time to write a book. And also, if you don't have that steady stream of clients, writing a book is not going to be the thing that gets you there, right? It's like that's not, I don't think that that's a good marketing strategy when you're just starting out. Um, if you want to do it as like a passion project, that's fine. And also, I don't want to see people spend like 3 or 6 or 9 months writing a book thinking like this is going to be the thing that like gets me my first 5 clients, right? Like like that's not the best time.
So
That's not the best
that's
time to
like
do it.
totally echoing what I tell people about an online course because like
Oh,
our
nice.
our marketing agency specializes in launching online courses and I'm like if you're just setting out do not put out an online course. It is not the best use of your time. It's not going to make you as much money as you want or enough money to like build a foundation, a financial
Yeah.
foundation to scale your business. So it sounds like the
Yes.
book is kind of in the same point.
Yes. Yeah, it's a place to, like you're saying, like, to scale to the next level, and also if you don't have that foundation set, it's not the right time, and I think there's a piece in which too, like, part of the content that's going to come out of the book is those client stories. It's like the framework that you develop from working with
Mm.
people and, like, honing whatever your craft is in your business, and I think those stories will, like, add so much to the book. So, like, I would wait until you're kind of like at that level to do it as a business strategy, right? That doesn't preclude you from writing a book just about the things that you know or just for
And
fun.
it probably like you're at a point in your business where you have people working for you, you can delegate a lot. So you have a little bit more space in your like work week to even dedicate to a project like that. I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
definitely. Yeah, that can definitely help. And I also, as we dive more into this, I do want to say, like, it probably is not going to take as much time as you think. Like, I think people
Okay.
probably
I
think
can't
it
wait to hear
takes
about
more.
this. So, you something that you sent in is a big transition that people need to get over is how to move from I want to write a book someday to I am writing a book to I have written a book. So can you take us through
Mhm.
that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. And this is so fun because this is part of a transformation that I work with for my clients who are writing books, and it's so fun. So, a few things that I want to talk about in terms of like what gets in the way of like moving from I want to write a book someday to the I am writing the book, just like to making that shift to like I am doing it. Um, it's really like this conversation about creative wounding and
Mm,
also worthiness, which is not something that I think people think. They go to I don't have enough time, I don't know how to do it, right? It's all these like surface level thoughts, and also when you dig under all the thoughts, this is what it's really about, right? Is this creative wounding and worthiness. And it shows up in these thoughts of like, who am I to be writing a book? Why do I think anyone would be interested in my story or what I have to say? You know, I literally just before this interview like worked with a client who was saying she's a master certified life coach from like a really prestigious coaching school. And she said, I don't have the authority. I feel like I
mm,
don't have the authority to teach on these concepts. Right. So, and she said, I don't have letters after my name. Right. So there's this like worthiness piece around like having or claiming the authority to speak about something. Right. So that's like a big piece of it. I think there's this piece too about like the thoughts that come up of like, do I really have time for this? Right. It's really that like worthiness piece of like, well, if you decide it's important, like you make time, right? Just like with anything else. And I think it also goes to like this thought I hear all the time, which is like, is anyone ever going to read this? And like, am I really doing or saying anything that different than what's already out there? Right. So all of these things really like fall under this umbrella of like creative wounding and worthiness. So I always tell my clients, like, give those thoughts a lot of space. Like just like open it up, give it a lot of space. Um, and like if you have the emotional capacity for it, like you might start digging into like what are your creative wounds because we all have them. Like every client I've ever worked with has them. And so it might be something that a boss once said or a teacher or a parent or you know a peer in like a workshop or like an artistic class of some kind, right? There could be like the compare and despair thing happening. So just sort of like unpacking for yourself like where and when has something you created like not been seen or understood or like outright trashed or criticized or sabotaged, right? Like I think some of us have had experiences like that as well. So the first part in sort of like making this journey from like I want to write a book someday to like I am writing a book is sort of unpacking some of those layers. And some thoughts that I invite people to choose instead are like one of my favorite things to say to people is that your desire to write is a calling to write. and that there's like a million people who never even think about writing. It like never crosses their mind because they have no desire to do it, and that your desire for it is a calling, that it's something, there's something there for you, there's something that you have to say. And the next piece is just this idea of the act of writing is what makes you a writer, and not the book deal, the agent, the six figures of sales, like whatever. Just the act of writing is what it was gives you that title of writer.
So this what's coming up for me in my life is around actually painting. When you're bringing
Mm,
up creative wounding.
yeah.
My mom went to art school. I grew up in a very creative family. Both my parents graphic designers, and I did tons and tons of art classes growing up. I almost went to like art school instead of like getting my physics degree. And I haven't really done any art in 10 years. Like
Mm,
I literally have like over here, I have all of this art supplies because I have the intention. I have like so much intention of like, I just need to like start a painting. I just need to like get like start like a drawing. But I like literally have this block of, and it's not even like I don't think I'm talented. I think I'm really talented, but I like, there's some resistance there. Is there
yeah.
something, and when I reflect on it, I'm like, oh, I used to go to art classes, so there's this like structured time that I would go to the place with the people where literally that's the only purpose that you're supposed to be doing in that time frame in that place. Is that something, I'm assuming this also would apply to writing and
Mhm,
creating space and structure maybe? I'm not sure
mhm.
how that it felt relevant, so I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like you're saying like this like studio space and time, right? Like not just the space, but like going to the studio and having like studio time. So actually something that I do for my community for free, like every single week, is I have something called the writing circle.
Oh
And
my
it
god,
happens
so fun.
at, yeah, it's so fun. So I do it every week on Mondays at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And literally like we jump on Zoom, and sometimes there's like four of us and sometimes there's like 15 or 20 people. And I do like a 10-minute kind of inspiration thing. And then we all just sit and write together on Zoom for like
That's
45 minutes.
brilliant. Oh my gosh, I wanna join.
It will be really early for you. And
I
also, you're
know,
totally
it's
welcome.
like having 5 AM. I might do it, who knows?
Oh, who knows? And I love it because also like sometimes there are people that come every single week, and there are people that like kind of drop in, like, drop in when they have time, or if they're like working on a specific project. And I also love like, I mean, there's entrepreneurs who are like writing email copy, and then there's like people who are writing novels, and then there's people who are writing like just like a short story or an article, right? So um I think there, and I created this right as accountability for myself to have writing time.
Mhm.
And I think there's something really powerful about like having the appointment and like showing up when there's other people going to be there.
And that's obviously different than creative wounding, but, like, I'm like, I've seen this resistance in myself, so you've already addressed that, that's amazing, super cool. Um, so, before this call, you've alluded that there is a magical side to creating a book. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I really feel like it's really interesting. So there's like these two sides of me, right? And they're like almost like warring right now. So I have a master's of fine arts degree in creative writing, which is like a graduate degree in how to write a book. And I learned so much stuff about like what is the technique, and like how do you structure a book, and like what are like the techniques of writing craft, right?
Wow.
And then also there was like no attendance in my degree to like how do you create like a delicious writing practice that makes you want to sit down and write, and like how do you like tap into your creativity when you feel like the well is really dry, and so I've had to kind of like create all of those things for myself, and I think that's where like this magical side comes in, right? So I really believe that like writing a book is so much less about like how many words are you going to write per day and so much more about like who are you going to become like in the process of writing, right?
Mm.
That there's this like becoming that happens like as you start digging into things. um so I really think that just like the practice of writing has so much to teach us. And then like the great thing is at the end of it, you also like produce this book, which like can help people and like serve your business and all these things. And also there's like this magical thing that happens just like in the doing of it. Does
Mhm.
that make sense?
So, give us some insight on how to tap into creativity when the well feels dry.
Oh, so good. Okay, so hmm. There's a couple things that I do for this. One is like literally just pause working on the thing, right? Like if you're working on a thing and you just like you feel like you're like banging your head against the wall, like just walking away. Sometimes it might be for a day, and depending on what, if you have a deadline, right? Like you might be not be able to take like a week, but if you can take like a week, sometimes like having that like space is helpful. So spending time intentionally like filling the well. So what are the practices for you that make you feel like juicy and inspired? So for me, it's like going for really long walks, being by the water, having good conversations with my closest friends, playing around with like my tarot cards, just like giving myself space to do these things that might not feel productive and yet like are super productive right on that inner work level. So that's one thing, is like if you can step away from like trying to like draw out of a well that's dry, like do that and kind of like give yourself space to intentionally like refill. And then I think there really is this piece around like intention and also just like that spiritual side of writing or creating anything, which is really just sort of like tapping in and being like saying hi to it and just being like being able to relate to this idea of like, I think of creativity as this like river that runs like between all of us that we're all connected to, and it's kind of like under the surface of our identity or our soul like all the time. And so like sometimes just spending some time like tapping into that and being like, what if I didn't have to generate all of these words out of my brain, and instead I could like channel them from this deeper source? That helps me a lot of times not feel like I'm kind of making something up. This piece about it really helps me if I'm feeling stuck to not think that I need to like generate more words out of my brain or like dredge more words up out of my brain, and instead be able to channel something from this larger source.
Mm. Do you have a specific identity that you associate with it, or are you just kind of opening yourself up to the more?
Oh yeah, I love this. So there's something. So like I do have this image, like I was saying, of like this river of creativity, and almost like drawing water from a river instead of even from a well. Like the well is almost like if that's what's in me, but like I have access to the river or the ocean. Like let's go there, right? And I think sometimes I do. And I actually have a meditation for some of my clients around like personifying your creativity. So I see my creativity sometimes as almost like this like nymph like kind of figure. And so like she kind of is wearing this like garment almost of like leaves, and like and she's like playing in the forest, right? So there's this piece around like if she is the one like helping me connect in and like channel all of this goodness, like just sort of like connecting with her almost like you would a person and just being like hi, like and like what like just sort of like going to her for guidance or just kind of like tapping into her energy helps me sometimes too.
Well, it's interesting because the things that you mentioned around like refilling your well very much almost is like embodying that nymph. That's what
Yes,
I think of,
I love it.
because I know with like planetary magic and like working with different deities, a lot of times you're of course like giving offerings, and you're learning what they like, but then you're also doing things that they like and like wearing
Mm.
things that you think that they would like. So I'm wondering if that like you can probably use that same sort of practice
Yeah.
in working with your own creativity, working with your own genius or whatever personification, or working with the river of creativity.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And it brought up for me too, like Julia Cameron, who's the author of The Artist's Way,
Mhm.
talks about her kind of creative genius is like her inner child. And so if she's feeling stuck, she will go to like, what does my inner child want to do? And sometimes it's like, I want to color, or like, right, like I want to go play outside, or like kind of do something that she enjoyed doing like as a literal child. And so sometimes like I think that helps like break up the cobwebs of feeling like writing has to be very serious and like allowing it to be more playful.
Mm. I've been finding so much inspiration lately from going to the beach because we're on
Mm.
Maui, so we're really close to the beach. And I'll just bring my like maybe a notebook, definitely my phone, and the fact that I'm not at my computer, I'm not at my house where there's so many distractions, and just being like I can just type on a note on my phone.
Yeah.
That's all I can do. I
Uh-huh.
can't really search on the search anything. It's just the like having that little space, and it brings a little bit of play, and
Mhm.
I guess it's also like totally tapping into the ocean of creativity.
Yes! Oh my gosh, it's so good. And I think there's this piece too, like I will sometimes, and I do this more for my business. Like if I'm on a walk, I will often get ideas. And so I use I use the app Otter, which is just like a voice recorder and it'll transcribe
Mm.
your notes for you, right?
What?
So yes. Oh, it's
Wow.
free. I just found out about this. It's called Otter.
Like
And you can
OTTER?
Yeah, and you
Wow.
literally just talk into it, it'll transcribe up to like 600 minutes or something for free, like each month. So, but I have writer friends who use this to write, like they'll like for their story or their business book or whatever it might be, like they'll just like turn it on and like if they're driving or walking and just like talk into it. And then it's like you can write pages and pages that way.
That's amazing. Wow. I definitely wanna do that, because I totally do the text to transcribe thing.
Yeah.
So what are some of the first few things that an entrepreneur should be doing at the beginning of a book project?
Oh, yes. Oh, so good. Okay, so the first thing is I think that if you have been an entrepreneur for any length of time, like a year, and you're serving clients, like you have enough content for a book. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I can guarantee that with some certainty. So I think the first piece is around like defining the scope of the book. So like what problem is this book solving or what question is the book answering, right? So part of it I think for entrepreneurs is almost like they have so much knowledge that it becomes about like focusing in like what is for this book and like what am I like what's going in, right, is almost like the first piece of like defining the scope. And it doesn't need to be like every single thing you know about your topic that you serve, but it's like that choosing that slice of like what is the question you get asked the most often, what is the thing that people struggle with the most when they come to you, like what like and there is this piece around I think Amy Porterfield talks about this. It's almost this question of like, what would people need to know and believe in order to be ready to work with you? Like, I think a book can be a really good place to start educating people around what they would need to know and believe in order to like hire you to work with them like more closely. There's this last piece around Alexandra Franzen is a writer that I know, and she has this idea of doing like a tiny book, which is like 50 to 100 pages. Or you could do a series of tiny books. And I've seen this like for a lot of people, it suddenly feels like so bite sized. They're like, oh
Mhm.
my God, of course I could do that. That would be so easy to get started on. And also like for readers, sometimes like if it's a slice like that 50 pages or even like 40, 50, 60 pages, right? Like it can just feel like, oh, like this is a perfect length, right? It's like a very slim like volume or it's like a PDF that is not too long to like read on your phone. So defining the scope, I think, is this first piece. The second piece is gathering assets. So, like, if you have this header of like the problem you're solving or the question you're answering, like I guarantee you already have like emails, Facebook group posts, Instagram posts, podcast topics, free lead magnets, like notes for your free challenge, right? Like anything you have like related to that thing, like when you start gathering it all like in a Google Drive folder, you might be like, oh my gosh, the book is like practically written, right? Like, and
Mhm.
there could be like things that you use with your clients already, like worksheets, frameworks that you teach, processes that you teach or like walk people through, right? It might be that you already have the structure of the book, like just based on how you take people through your work. This is also a great place that a team member could help with, or you'd just be like, oh, like go gather all the things like on this topic. And
Put them
they
into the
might even,
buckets.
yeah, put them into the drive folder or however you organize. And also like they might remember things that you like forgot about. Like if you've been in business for a long time, like you're like, oh yeah, I did that. I totally forgot about that thing, right? So having if you have team members, that could be a great place to get help. And the third step when you're kind of just starting is then to do an outline, right? So if you have like defined the scope and then you have kind of gathered the assets, like just starting like, how will I take people through this information, right? Like, how will I move them from point A to point B? I will also say that I do have clients who hate outlining and they would prefer to just start writing. So, like, fine, start writing, write. And you can do, it's just called a reverse outline, which is basically like everything comes out. And then you like look at the high level points of like, what did I say? And then you can kind of move things around and be like, oh, it'll make more sense if I talked about this first. But some people really feel like the outline kind of stifles them. So, in which case, start pouring it out and then you can kind of decide later, like when you see what's come out, like what order would it best flow in.
Wow, my brain does not work like that, so I would not have known that that is something that
Some people like, yes, so there's people listening who are like, oh my god, if I don't have to write an outline I would be so happy. So whatever works for you, there's not one right way, there are many right ways.
So with I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm completely lost, but I'm assuming a lot of this will be self-publishing for people who are mainly using it for business purposes.
This is a great question, I'm so glad you asked. So I think for business purposes, self publishing or hybrid publishing are the way to go. And I will explain the difference. Well, let me just talk about and I'll also talk about traditional publishing and why I don't think that's the right way to go. So, traditional publishing is like the big six publishers like Random House, Penguin, Simon and Schuster, like those big names. You have to go through first, you need to pitch literary agents, you need to get an agent to sign on, they need to pitch publishers, get a publisher to sign on, get a book deal. It takes a really long time. And you don't have as much creative control. So that's usually like not the best route to go. Self-publishing is the other end of the spectrum. And that's where like, you get to decide everything, right? You have all the creative control of like, when am I going to publish? How long am I going to take to write? What do I want the cover to look like? How many F words do I want to use? Like in this book, like nobody gets to tell you like what you can and can't say, how many times you can say fuck, etc. Like what stories you can and can't tell, right? You get to decide all of those pieces yourself. Hybrid publishing is literally the hybrid between those two. So you get the creative control of self publishing, getting to decide all the things for yourself, getting to keep all the money, right? Like not having to give percentages to your publisher or your agent. And with hybrid publishing, you also get a professional team behind you. So I am actually like, and I haven't announced this anywhere yet, but I like just decided
Heard it
last
here
month
first.
that
It's happening. I totally love it.
I
They're like,
know.
people are like, I haven't mentioned this anywhere,
I
but
haven't mentioned this anywhere.
heard it here first.
Heard it here first. I am starting my own hybrid publishing company in
Cool.
2021, and it's so fun. So the idea behind hybrid publishing is you, like I said, you have all the creative control of self-publishing, but you have a professional team behind you. So you have access to a project manager who's going to walk you through every step in the process and oversee all the tiny details. So you're not going to be on Google being like, how do I find a self-publishing printer that prints on demand and also connects to Amazon, right? Like we
Yeah.
will say, here's your three options. This is the one we recommend for your book, right? We have a professional graphic designer on staff who is familiar with doing book covers and they know how to do interior design of a book. And you're not going to end up with like, for example, like one of my clients is doing a tiny book and we're doing an 8 by 5 inch size, but not every printer prints 8 by 5, right? So there's like all these details that you might not know unless someone knows for you, right? So my team will also like set up your author page on Amazon, like set things up with the printing company, set up your sales page like on your website if you want that help, right? So there's this piece in which having that professional team behind you can really also make you feel like I'm putting the best foot forward on this book. And like, there's not going to be like 12 typos. I mean, there's always typos, even when they're like my book that was traditionally published, like I found a typo the other day, like it happens. And also like knowing that there's like another set of eyes on the book at every stage gives people like a lot of comfort in being like, okay, now I can put my best foot forward. And the last piece is a lot of hybrid publishers, including mine, offer like publicity and marketing strategy as well. So there's that piece of like, how do you do a book launch? Like there's like 12 different ways and like what would be best for you and your business and the way that you work.
That's amazing, specifically because I've worked with two separate clients who last year that traditionally published books, and I was on their
Mm.
marketing team just with them, like separate from their
Yep.
publisher, just
Yep.
helping with their book launch and like their book funnel to like actually make money off
Yes.
of a book.
Yes.
And the publishers did nothing.
Oh, my friend.
Absolutely nothing. And like
They really
both of these authors were like, no,
yes.
like I can't get a hold of them. They
Yes.
said they would do these things and they're not doing the things. And I'm spending ads, I'm like running Facebook ads to this thing, and they're doing nothing. So
Yes.
I don't, I think a lot of people don't realize how little, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be saying
You're
this.
not actually. This is 100% true. And 100% true. And I think the other piece is that people don't recognize is traditional publishing is probably like, and I heard this from someone who is a former book publicist, like that her whole job was promoting books. She was like, they're about 20 years behind. So, like, when I said to my publisher, I'm going to do podcast interviews as part of when I was promoting my novel that came out, he was like, oh, podcasts are such a fad. And I was like, what? Do you not know anything about like I was just like, I don't even understand that sentence. Like, so and like when my book came out, like they did like a press release, and my marketing person was like, press releases haven't been a thing since like 2003. And yet, like, this is what publishers are doing. So there is this piece in which, yeah, like you're gonna have to be doing like all or most of it anyway. So I feel like in a lot of cases you may as well like have more control, especially if it's for your business. I think it makes a lot of sense.
That's awesome. I love that so much. Yay. Excited for
Yay.
you.
Thank you. I'm excited too. And yeah, you heard it here first. So
You heard it here first, you guys. So, what else do people need to know about writing a book?
mm, I think there's a piece in which like it probably takes less time on a daily basis or a weekly basis than you think. Like, I think people sometimes think like, oh, I have to write like 3 hours a day. Like, no, like not necessarily. Especially if, like you said, like we were saying, if like you've already gathered like a lot of the assets, like a lot of it, you might find that a lot of it is already there for you. And so I think it depends on like just being very clear about your goals. Like if you want to finish your book in 3 months or less, like if you want to be like really serious about it, like yes, it's going to take more time on a daily basis. Like I'm working on a new book, and I'm like, I would like to have a draft by the end of the year. And I'm also not in a hurry. And I'm really wanting to like let it unfold and not put a lot of pressure on it. And so I'm working on it like 20 to 30 minutes a day, like when it feels fun for me, which is like a few days a week. I'm not like slaving over it. It fits my schedule. It feels amazing. And like that's in line with my goals, right? I'm just like, I want to have like let a draft unfold this year and like have fun while I do it. So part of it is like choosing your goal, and then also like it might not take as much time as you think. I think it can also be more fun than you think, right? So there's this piece in which like it doesn't have to be as serious, and you can bring in those like playful elements, and like the elements that you have fun in your business, like they need to come across in your writing. So if the writing is feeling like really tedious and dry, like that's going to come across. So like finding the ways that you can make it feel fun and engaging for yourself in the process will make it be all the more fun and engaging for your reader.
And what are ways to do that?
Yeah, so I think one way is what we were saying before about like you were saying, you go to the beach and just like type on your phone, or like use the voice to text or like a transcription app and just like kind of like talking it out. Um some other fun ways like to yeah just make the practice of it feel more delightful. So one is, this is so fun, so I have a client who was telling me that she really misses writing in coffee shops because since COVID, like she lives in Florida and she's like, I just don't feel comfortable like going out, and I think now even a lot of them are closed. So in any case, it's like, so she got to this point of like, how can I create that vibe for myself? So here's what she did. She went on Spotify and she found there's like literally a playlist called like French Cafe Lounge. And it has like all this like French like cafe like music. So then she makes herself like a fancy coffee, like, and she puts it in her favorite mug, and she will literally like spritz some like fancy perfume in the air. She sits down with like her music and she'll be like, okay, I'm going to write for an hour. And like, she makes it just feel like so fun and delightful, like as if she's at this like trendy French cafe, right? With like all of her senses, right? So we have the music for sound, we have the scent, we have the coffee, we have like, you know, she likes to type. And also the other thing I want to say is, some of my clients love handwriting their book, and they
That's me.
never okay,
Totally
yes,
me.
thank you, because some people are like so resistant to that as a concept, and then I'm like, if you're feeling stuck, like just try it, right? Because I have a lot of a lot of clients who are like, I just type all day or I'm on the computer all day and like then writing just feels like more work. And I'm like, try writing in a notebook or a journal. And like they hate the idea and then they try it and they're like, I'm never going back. Right. So like
The thing for me with that
thing.
is, I can't it's harder for me to edit myself as I go when I'm handwriting,
Yes,
where, like, when I'm
totally.
typing it, it's, like, so easy to delete and, like, go back and, like,
Yes.
"Oh, I can open the thesaurus and look for other words," versus when you're in, like, a
Hmm.
notebook, it's like you
Yeah.
can only just write.
Yeah.
There's
Totally.
no,
Yeah.
like, self-editing.
Yeah. And so and with the notebook, I think there's two ways that people think about this that I've come across. And one is like I really like to have like a really fancy journal that I write in like for my journaling or if I'm going to write something down. And some people find it very intimidating like they don't want to mess up the journal. And so for those people, it's like get yourself a 99-cent like spiral bound notebook from Target and like write all over like just like don't worry about like being precious about it, right? So some people will like having like the beautiful container. For some people it'll freak them out, so it's just about like tweaking it for what's going to work for you.
That's awesome. So something came to mind, kind of it's on topic, off topic, which is, have you ever read the book Profit First?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it, but I know of it.
So it's an excellent book for any business owner. But the author Mike Michalowicz, I think he's written a bunch of nonfiction books, and he in one of his audiobooks, I think it was in the Profit First one, he's like, oh, I actually like we're taught in this day and age for nonfiction writers to get as much as you can into like the first quarter of the book because so many people don't finish books these days. So you want to try and like
Mm.
get all of your impact in that first little part of the book. Have you heard this? Is this true?
I haven't heard that, and that's really interesting. That doesn't surprise me. And also, there's like two things that are happening for me. One is like that feels like a lot of pressure if you're writing, especially if you're writing a draft and you're like, I have to put all of it into the first quarter of the book. Um, I think like for me, it's like a yes and. It's sort of like yes and if people aren't going to finish your book like that's kind of on them and like and also like I think you do want to lead with like a hook that's like why should people care, like what are your strongest ideas, and then also just like being really like just honest about how you take clients like through your work, like what is the transformational process, right? And if it doesn't all happen in the first quarter, like that's fine. Like that's fine. That's okay. And people are going to need to keep reading if they're going to get the transformation. Is how I feel about it.
Okay, so looping back to what you said about the Amy Porterfield lesson on what is the important first thing that they need to know before they start working with you. That feels a little
Mm,
different. Like I know that's common for her stuff with like launch content and webinar
mm,
content, and
mhm.
I'm just wondering, like, is there enough juice in that of like talking about the why, like why is this a problem versus like actually drilling into the how and or like making
Mm,
essentially an online course in book form?
mm. That's interesting. So I think there's part of it in which like you like there does need to be the how, right? Like you can't like the whole book can't be like this is why you should hire me. And also it's like what is like there's a piece around and Simone Soul, who I know is how I found your podcast, and she's a friend of mine. She talks about this idea of like what is the container that you're speaking to people in, right? So like the container of an online course and the transformation you can get in an online course is different in some ways. It's a different format, right, than a book. And so it's sort of like what is the format, what is the transformation that works in book format. And so I think part of that could be this question of like what would people need to know and believe about not just you but about themselves, about their work, right, to want to go deeper with you. So if a book is sort of like you are giving them transformation and also it's a level, right, and like there's always going to be levels in a business and how people engage with you. People often think of a book as like maybe the first, like so if maybe a podcast interview or like an email or an ad is like the first layer, and then the book is like the second like bigger layer, and then like your course is the third layer, and working with you privately one on one is the fourth layer of intimacy and transformation that you can give them. Like what level of that amount of transformation is appropriate for a book? That's how
Mhm.
I would think about it.
Well, I'm just like imagining, okay, this is my process.
Mm,
Am I using the book to go not that very deep through the entire process, or am I only giving them a pie, a first piece of the pie part of the process, and they have to like take the
Mm.
next step to go deeper into it? I'm guessing you can do either or, and it just depends on your topic and your preference.
Yeah, I think you can definitely do either or. And I think there's a piece in which like you're saying, maybe the first quarter of the book is the overview of the process and it's like and then maybe you're diving deeper into parts of it or all of it, right? And yeah, so I think it could be either or. It could be this like surface level like this is the whole journey and come work with me to get the next layer of the journey. Or it could be like, we're going to dive very deep into like part 1, 2, 3. And like for 4 through 6, right? Like come to this like next piece. And I think there's a part in which like there could be multiple books, right? Like I think there's different like slices of how you do it. Like I'm thinking of um Denise Duffield Thomas works with like money, women and money and manifestation, right? So she has a book called, which is hilarious, called Get Rich Lucky Bitch. And it's all about like how do you use luck to manifest money and how like what are manifestation techniques, right? So and it's more like general for like women reclaiming power around money, reclaiming stories about money, like changing the narrative, and like then some very specific like money tools that she uses to manifest. Then she has a second book called Chillpreneur, which is it's specifically for women business owners, right? Whereas the first book was like more general. This book is almost like narrowing her funnel almost, right? Where it's like it's specifically for entrepreneurs who don't want to be like working themselves to death. And like how does she think about money in her business? How does she simplify her business to make it more fun and easier to run? So, and she goes pretty deep into like those topics, right? And also she doesn't give everything. She also has a course called, I can't remember, I think it's Money Bootcamp. Right. So the course is like the next level of like tools and accountability. So does that help? There's sort of like you can kind of take different slices on it, slice and dice your work any
And
way you choose.
I've actually heard her specifically talk about her writing process. Like
Mm,
the first book was like her just getting something out, and like it very like it was self published. It like was later, much later on, republished by Hay
the
House.
Hay House, yeah.
And then Chillpreneur was like her next version of book, but she says that like that's not even her like ultimate book that she's writing. She's like still in the process
Mm,
of writing her ultimate book. And I felt like it was echoing what you were saying before of like sometimes you just need to get the book that's on your heart out before you can build the
yes.
perfect one for your business.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. And I love like even like the way she talks about her business, right? Is it's very simple. Like she has, I think, 2 courses and she has books
I think
and
she's
that's
down
it.
to one. I
As
she
one course.
I think she's
Okay.
down like she had it
One course.
3 and I think it went down to 2 and now it's just 1.
Yeah. One course and books. And it's like if you want to work with her, it's like those are your options. And I love like just the constraint of that, I think is really beautiful of like consciously choosing like these are the ways you can interact with me and my ideas.
Yeah, no, I love constraint in business.
Mm,
Like, just
mhm.
okay, figure out the offer that's on your heart, and, like, it might change over time. Get really good at it, and then instead of, like, making a gazillion different courses, just, figure out ways to make that funnel more efficient and put out better and better free content.
Yeah.
That's my
I love
opinion.
it.
I think it makes for a more profitable business if we're talking
Mm,
about profit margin.
yeah.
Um, anyways.
So good.
So this podcast is called Business as a Magical Practice, where we don't always only use our magical and spiritual practices to boost our business, but we also use our business as a tool for soul evolution. Can you tell us how you use your business for your spiritual development?
Oh my gosh, I love this question so much. And like me from a year ago is just like rejoicing because I think it was about a little more than a year ago that I first discovered this idea that like business could be spiritual. I was like,
Mm.
what? I don't have to like, segment myself into like these different like silos. And this is when I used to be a copywriter for entrepreneurs. And I was really good at that because I'm a really good writer. And also, it was just not my whole heart. Right. And so as I started discovering this piece about like spirituality and business, like going together, is really when I started being like, oh, I want to coach people who are writing books. Like, and so for example, this morning I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, today is the best day ever because I got to read submissions from 2 of my clients who are writing books, who I'm meeting with tomorrow. I got to coach somebody who is working on a book who's been like stuck around issues of like voice and how to structure her work. And then I got to have this conversation with you. And I was like, this is like what I have been wanting all along. And I feel like there's this piece of like trusting my business to like evolve into itself has deepened my own faith in like how the universe works. That makes sense. Of just like, as I have like given my business space to like become what it is wanted to become, like I have been like, oh, I really can trust that like I am held and I don't have to like go hustling after every single opportunity. And sometimes they just happen, right? It's like there's still this piece about putting in the practice and showing up, and also um, there's this level of trust that I never knew was a thing before that I've been practicing. That's been really beautiful.
Mm. And do you have any daily or weekly spiritual or magical practices that you feel like fuels your business?
Hmm. So one that I've just started, which is super fun, is it's kind of has two parts. So one thing that I do is I have a spreadsheet where I literally like have, okay, this is the income goal that I have for like the first half of the year, and I want to book it by the end of February. And I like look at it once a week and I just say like, okay, like how much is either brought in or contracted, and like then and like what's the amount that's like left for me to like draw in like for my goal. And then I have a list of, it's basically, you could call it a prospect list, but I think I called it like the prospect list of love or something. Like it really is just like people that I've come across who are writing books or who have like randomly, quote unquote, randomly, like come out of the woodwork to be like, I'm writing a book. Can we talk about book writing? Like I just have a list of their names and I just sort of like look at these two spreadsheets and I just am sort of like, okay, like whoever's ready, like I just sort of call them forward. And
Mm.
then I kind of like sit back, not sit back, but I just sort of like show up in all the marketing that I normally do. And I trust that the people who are ready to work on their books in this time are going to like come forward of their own accord. And I certainly like reach out to people when I get a nudge to do so. And I also like have just like removed that whole layer of like pushy energy that I used to have. And I'm just like, how are you doing? Are you ready to write your book? And it's like, and I would trust that like you will say yes when it's time. Um, so those are two things I've been practicing, and I just sort of like do, like I almost think of it as like energizing those two like lists of just like and like opening to possibility for how that money will come in. Like I don't have a set idea. Like I'm like it could be in this combination. If I have like three offerings, could be this combination, could be this, right? It's kind of like I'm not attached to it coming in a particular way. I just sort of like open to the possibility that the week has in store.
That's great. I love that. It's interesting because I last year I had this realization that the only way I had been getting clients was either by referral or me direct reaching out to people who I really loved working with, and that is not really the it is in like more traditional marketing or consultant world, like that is a very common way of getting it. But in like the spiritual world, which is like where my focus is and like I dwell in, it's like all about like attraction or building an audience and like all these things. And I think it's
Mm,
beautiful when we can realize that we are unique snowflakes, and whatever works for us, if you're really honest with yourself and you're like, no, this is how, this is either how clients do come to me, or this is
mm,
how I want them to come to me, and like committing to that system, it's really empowering, and it's really it makes it so that instead of just like, so many of us think that we have to work 8-hour days because that's just like the what we've all agreed upon in this society. But
yeah.
really, if we can distill what actually needs to get done on a daily and weekly basis to hit the goals that we're shooting for, like maybe it's only a half hour a day.
Could be, it could be. Yeah, and I love what you said so much. And like I have found too that like what gets me the most clients is when I have like relationships with people.
Mm,
Like, and
yeah.
so sometimes, like, for example, I had a subcontractor who was doing Instagram for one of my other clients. And that person referred someone to me who has been one of my like biggest clients ever. Right. So it's sort of like, um, not necessarily having relationships with the person that's going to hire me, but just like relationships in general. And so
Yeah.
then giving myself the freedom to invest in those relationships where it feels like natural and good to me. And
Mhm.
then people like things just happen kind of when I let myself do that.
Do you know your sun, moon, and rising signs?
I
Yes.
don't.
Don't. Oh, come on.
Alas.
Okay, moving on. So something I like to ask people as a final question is, what have been your favorite recent purchases for your business and for pleasure?
Ooh, I love this. Okay, so one of my favorite things, and this actually goes to both, is I decided to treat myself to a monthly massage.
Hmm.
And for a while, I told myself I was doing that. And then what would actually happen is I would book the massage, and then I would be like, well, we don't have enough money this month. We have to buy XYZ. I have something came up for that time. So I'm just going to reschedule. But my massage therapist books out like several weeks in advance. So if I reschedule, it's really like you're postponing it like a month or longer. So what I started doing is basically saying, the person that I become when I have a massage every month is like the business owner, the mom, the person that I want to be. And I treat myself to that experience. And it was fascinating because the last time I was there, my massage therapist literally said to me, she said, you can receive a massage the way most of my clients, like most people can't do this. And
Hmm.
she said, like, basically, like, I can feel you breathing. She said, a lot of people, I can't tell, even if I'm touching their back, I can't tell if they're breathing at all. She's like, kind of like, are you there? Like, she said, I can feel you breathing. She said, if I'm working on a spot, like, you'll breathe into the spot and you'll like be like exhaling out. And she said, if I'm like moving your arms or legs, like you'll move with me instead of like resisting. She said, most people cannot receive in this way. And like, I literally been practicing something that my coach calls pleasure mindfulness, which is literally just like when you're having a pleasurable experience, like consciously tuning into it with all of your senses. And the next day, I got a contract for like $5,000 that I wasn't expecting to come through. I was like,
So fun.
so it was like one of those things where I'm like, this is such a great experiment. Like, so I think practicing receiving pleasure in that way has also like led to receiving, money in my business,
Mhm.
which is really fun.
And what a perfect new belief to take on. Getting
Yes.
massages makes me money.
So good.
Well, that's something that I really when I can't remember who I first heard this from, but it really switched something on in my brain of like self-care as a profit generating activity,
Yes.
particularly for business owners, that we like it's not just the work that we do and like all of this
Mm,
doing and implementing. It's also about like how we are actually opening ourselves up to receiving, especially as women.
yeah.
So, what a
So
practice.
good. Yes.
Not easy to let it be easy, huh?
It's a practice.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with me, Brooke. And
This
where
is
can
so
people
fun.
find you all of the places online? I hear you have a new book out.
Yes. So I am everywhere. Brooke Adams Law. People think that I'm a law firm, but in fact, I'm not. Law is my husband's last name, and Adams is my maiden name. So, in any case, so I'm at Brooke Adams Law on Instagram and on Facebook, and my website is also the same, Brooke Adams Law. And yes, my novel came out in October, and I'm super proud of it. It's called Catch Light, and it was just named by Kirkus Reviews as one of their best indie books of the year, which is a really big honor. It was also featured on Good Morning America's 12 must read books for October, which I'm super proud of. And it is the story of a family of four grown siblings. They can't stand to be in the same room with each other. And when their mother is diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, they have to figure out like, how are we not just going to like come back together and like be a family and also like make all these decisions that need to happen for her health and like with her house and all these like logistical pieces, right, when somebody's sick. And as they're going through this experience, they uncover a family secret that kind of changes everything. So it's super juicy.
Oh my god, that's so fun. Well, congratulations. That's like it's blowing up, huh?
It's blowing up. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And it was a long journey. I started writing it in 2007 and it just came out in 2020. So,
Wow.
um, not everyone will have that long journey of a book. And there were reasons why it took that length of time. And I feel like in the end, it was perfect. And also, I'm like, yeah, my next book I'm going to write in a year.
13 years to 1 year. Impressive.
We
And then
work with what
what
we
about
got.
people who wanna hire you? Like, I'm assuming you do coaching or, like, what are the different ways that people can work with you?
Yeah. So, well, oh, also another way people can like find me for free. So, I have a free Facebook group called Writer's Haven, and I teach in there like a few times a week about the magical side of writing and then also the technique side and how to structure and how to write write more skillfully, all those pieces. So, in terms of my writing coaching, right now I offer a 6 month coaching package where if it is your goal, we can get a book completely done in 6 months for your business. And I'm also now that it's out there on this podcast in the world, offering the hybrid publishing option. So if people want to have my team produce and publish their book, that's part of it as well.
Awesome. That's amazing.
So fun.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Thank you all for listening. We'll put all of Brooke's links in the show notes so you can engage with her and get her help and read her book. Thanks, Brooke. You have a great day.
Thanks, Sam. You too.